countdown to the historic North Korea summit is on.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, he has just wrapped up a briefing from Singapore.
I'm very optimistic that we will have a successful outcome from tomorrow's meeting.
We have the potential now, Steve, to go from fire and fury to peace and prosperity. Couldn't be bigger stakes than that.
The summit ended with a nasty dust-up between President Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau.
There's a special place in hell for any foreign leader that engages in bad faith diplomacy.
We've been treated unfairly by the Canadians in many respects. A 300% tariff or close to it on our dairy products, that's not really fair to us either.
I'm going to say one thing, Trump.
It just shows how feckless the resistance movement is. They offer no solutions. So what they do is resort to using the F-bomb.
Nice finish! Dustin Johnson with his 18th victory on tour.
This is a Fox News alert. We're just hours away from the start of the summit between those two men, Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. They'll be in the room together for a couple of hours, and then they're going to bring in their trusted aides. And then what happens? Let's talk to somebody who probably has a pretty good idea.
Yeah, let's bring in Chris Wallace from Fox News Sunday. He is a very special anchor for Fox News Channel, and he is live in Singapore. Very special. Chris, what can we expect tonight? Tonight, 9 p.m. our time, 9 a.m. your time.
Yeah, I know. The times are all messed up because I was going to say good evening from Singapore. And in fact, I was thinking that you guys should move here to do Fox and Friends because we'd be in prime time here. We're 12 hours ahead of you, so it's 9 p.m. or 7 p.m. at night here in Singapore right now. What to expect? Well, I thought the clip you played right at the top of the show from Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was very interesting. He said, I am very optimistic there will be a successful outcome. I don't think the Secretary of State says that if they haven't come to something of an understanding with the North Koreans. They've been meeting with them even into today. I don't think we're going to get some huge agreement. I think what we're going to get, though, is an understanding that the process is going to continue and, in fact, intensify. Obviously, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and certainly more meetings and probably more summits between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, but that they have at least enough optimism that rather than the president walking out, as he's threatened to do several times, that he will continue with this and, in fact, intensify the meetings to try to denuclearize North Korea and, in return, provide economic relief and security guarantees.
Chris, through all your career, you covered a lot of summits with a lot of different presidents. This president's going to do something that takes a lot of confidence. And that is, I'm going to meet one-on-one with Kim Jong-un, just us and interpreters, for a couple of hours to start. And you also asked Mike Pompeo something. Do you think he understands English? And Mike Pompeo indicated he thinks he does. Who knows? They might even throw out the interpreters. What do you think could happen then?
Well, I don't think they're going to throw out the interpreters. I would talk to Mike Pompeo when he was on Fox News Sunday a few weeks ago, and I asked him about how they had the conversation. He said they'd talked for an hour and a half, and I said, was there simultaneous translation or consecutive, where one guy talks and then they have to wait for the translator, which means that you get about half as much time of actual conversation. And he said they had consecutive translation. One guy would talk and then they'd have to wait for the translation. But he said he got the distinct impression that Kim understood what he was saying in English and basically took advantage of the translation to formulate his answer. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be, and you know, we'll never know exactly because, as you say, it's going to be just the two of them and their translators in the room. But it should be fascinating. These are two very wily, very cagey, very unpredictable leaders. And I think this will really be the key to the summit. It'll be a sizing up. They're going to sense, can they do business with each other? Does it make sense to continue? And can they trust? I don't mean trust in the sense of there's not going to be a heavy verification process, but can they trust that the process will eventually lead to a satisfactory conclusion?
Sure. You know, it's interesting. Barack Obama said President Trump would be defined by North Korea. And I think now that President Trump feels he's got something, he's on the verge of something, he probably likes that. You know, we were getting drips and drabs, little leaks about things people think are going to be in whatever the agreements wind up being, Chris. But one of the things apparently the president wants to say to North Korea is, you could be so much more wealthy if you just were a partner with us rather than an adversary. Who knows? There might be a McDonald's somewhere in Pyongyang in no time.
Well, it's an interesting thing about that, Steve, because on the one hand, there's no question that Kim Jong-un, first of all, I think he feels the pressure from President Trump and the threats of fire and fury and the rhetoric that was really raised. And I suspect the belief that, you really do have to worry about President Trump if you're Kim Jong-un. Part of it also was the desire for economic relief. But I talked yesterday to Secretary Richardson on Fox News Sunday about 24 hours ago, and he said that Western investment, the idea of the McDonald's, might be seen by Kim as more of a threat than an offer. And the reason for that, which is very interesting, is that Richardson said, look, what does Kim care about most? Security, the preservation of the Kim regime, and the idea of a lot of Western money and a lot of Western interaction he might see as a security threat, that this might undermine and give the North Koreans a bad sense. So, yes, he definitely wants the sanctions off, and he wants to be able to control and get more support from countries, friendly countries like China. But whether he's going to want to see a lot of McDonald's and a lot of Western tourists there who may put crazy ideas like liberty and freedom and democracy and free speech and freedom of assembly into the North Koreans' minds, not necessarily.
What did you make of the G7 summit when the president says, after he leaves, then Justin Trudeau stands up and he says, we're going to retaliate. We don't like these tariffs on aluminum and steel. And he says, therefore, we're going to retaliate against America. Our president doesn't like it. He tweets about it. He's saying we're getting gypped. We pay 22% of the NATO budget. We pay more than any other country, and yet they're ripping us off. We need to put America first. What did you make of it?
Well, look, this was classic Donald Trump, and he reacted very strongly. As you know, you played a clip at the top of the show of Peter Navarro, one of the president's top trade advisors, who was on Fox News Sunday. And I asked him right at the start about President Trump in his tweet saying that he was not going to sign the communique and calling Trudeau weak and dishonest. And as you heard, Navarro went off and said that there's a special place in hell for somebody who backstabs after a diplomatic session like that. It called Trudeau out. Larry Kudlow did as well, the president's top economic advisor in the White House. And Navarro made it very clear to me that the sentiment that he was expressing had come directly from Air Force One. So President Trump had, whether those words had come from President Trump, that sentiment and basically the instruction to really go out hard after Trudeau came from President Trump on Air Force One during the almost 20 hours that he spent going from Canada here to Singapore.
So when Lindsey Graham came out and said the letter that the Democrats put forward, they gave to the president, that said this is the criteria for a successful summit, total denuclearization, is very tough. Never came with the Iranian deal, but it came out now. Senator Graham really believes that that's going to help the president show Kim Jong-un that he might even bring the letter, because he might show him and says, look at how united we are at home. But let's add in one more factor, a new AUMF that shows if this doesn't work, there is a military option. How do you think that will play?
Well, I don't know if he's going to do it, but look, there's no question that there are two reasons that Kim Jong-un is here. He, his father, and his grandfather, the whole Kim regime, has spent years, decades, and billions of dollars building up their nuclear arsenal. They saw it as the guarantee that nobody was going to invade their country and overthrow them. So why is he here even talking about denuclearization? Two reasons. One, as we say, because the sanctions, the maximum pressure campaign of the president really has squeezed them and has really affected life in Pyongyang and North Korea. And second, the president's threats, fire and fury, little rocket man, suicide mission. So anything that gives credibility to the threat that the president really, if you go off the track here, Kim, that the U.S. really may use the military option. can only strengthen the president's bargaining power.
And also, there was some suggestions, some reporting over the weekend that apparently Mike Pompeo was told by the president when he went to meet Kim around Easter, no more crazy talk. He used a colorful language with that, but no more crazy talk from anybody in the administration. And that's when Little Rocket Man, et cetera, stopped.
I know, Chris, I was watching your show yesterday, and you had the video of you covering Gorbachev and President Reagan. Years from now, decades from now, is the media going to be talking about this? Is it that big?
The answer, Ainsley, it's a very good question. The answer is it depends on what happens. Yeah. Nobody would be talking about Reagan and Gorbachev if nothing had happened, but it ended up leading to the end of the Cold War and eventually to the end of the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. Now, if 5 or 10 years from now we have a peace, whether it's a unification or just a status of peace on the Korean Peninsula, if North Korea has given up its nuclear threat, which endangers much of the world, absolutely, this will be as consequential, but you can't know now where it'll be 5 or 10 years from now.
And just for the record, the only question you really you liked Ainsley's question better than all of ours. Ainsley, good question.
I watched your show.
How do you think Steve and I feel?
Yesterday.
You didn't say anything like that with us.
All right, it's 7:11 p.m. in Singapore.
Well,
Chris.
you know what? My idea of you guys. My idea of you guys coming here and doing a primetime Fox and Friends, forget it. Brian is ruined.
You just want me to go,
That's
right?
why you can't have nice things, Brian. Yes, Ainsley, you can come here.
My invitation stands. All right, thank you, Chris. We'll be watching your coverage all day.
All right, it's 7:11 p.m. there. It's 7:11 a.m. here with the news.
I think
does
Brian
make it
was
easier,
just
right?
put in timeout.
I know, I was. I got yelled at from Singapore.
Yes, you
At
did.
least it's 12 hours there. That makes it easier, right?
Yeah.
just change the AM to PM.
Yeah.
All right, so we do have a Fox News alert, so let's get you caught up on that. And the story that we're following, an American pilot is in serious condition after ejecting to safety moments before a jet crash. The F-15 plunging into the sea during a training mission off the coast of Okinawa, Japan. The pilot, the only person on the plane, was rescued. The incident is under investigation. This marks the 6th non-combat crash for the Air Force already this year. That's compared to 7 in total last year. Candidates in 5 states making their final appeal to voters today ahead of primary day. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster facing 4 challengers in the GOP gubernatorial primary. The Republican incumbent is endorsed by President Trump. And Tuesday will be Maine's first time using a ranked choice voting system. Voters will organize the candidates in order of preference, instead of choosing just one. Now, this will take days to determine who wins. The First Lady stepping into the spotlight to pay tribute to Abraham Lincoln's legacy. Melania Trump serving as the honorary chair of the Ford's Theater Gala in Washington, D.C. She made remarks and congratulated the recipients of the Lincoln Medal. In a statement, the First Lady says it, quote, reminds all of us about the power the arts have in cultivating the American voice. Let's look at your headlines. I will send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Jillian.
All right, coming up on this Monday, House Intelligence Chair Devin Nunes giving the Department of Justice until tomorrow, that's the deadline, to give up documents on the Russia probe, calling any move to refuse him obstruction. Law professor Jonathan Turley here to discuss that, coming up next.
Plus, look who is in our green room. It is Larry the Cable Guy and his whole family.
Dan's wearing shorts. House Intel Committee Chair, that man right there, Devin Nunes, giving the Department of Justice until tomorrow to give up records tied to the alleged FBI Russia informant, calling any move to withhold them from Congress obstruction. Here to weigh in, constitutional law professor at George Washington University, Jonathan Turley. Jonathan, good morning to you.
Hi, Steve.
First of all, let's start at the very beginning. Does Congress have a right to see these documents?
It absolutely does. I mean, Nunes is correct that this committee that they showed these documents to,
the Gang of Eight.
Yeah, the Gang of Eight is completely informal. It's sort of made up. The group of members that have a right to see this and a need to see it are the 2 oversight committees in the House and Senate, including the committee of Nunes.
Right.
And, you know, when he says we don't really see what the justification of this is, I think has a great deal of merit to it. You know, we're not talking about the public release of information. We're talking about the release of information in a classified setting to people that have direct oversight over this agency.
Sure. And what's interesting, over the last couple of weeks, we've heard about, well, the Department of Justice is setting up a meeting and they're inviting these select members of Congress to come over. But what they have offered is the Department of Justice will tell them about the documents. They wouldn't actually show them to them.
Right. And, you know, what's weird about this is for the two committees, this should have been deeply upsetting, you know, that they say, well, here, we're just going to select these people and show them not the documents, but give them something classified as a circumvention of committees with oversight. For years, many of us have been arguing that these committees needed to get into real oversight. They've been viewed as paper tigers for decades. Nunes is the first chairman who's been this aggressive. And frankly, for those of us who believe we need greater oversight, that's a good change. What's weird is to have the Democrats sounding so much like J. Edgar Hoover. You know, they're saying, you know, this is wrong to require disclosures in a classified setting. Well, that's the meaning of oversight.
Sure. You've been watching Congress in Washington for a very long time. Your gut, though, tells you the reason the Department of Justice doesn't want to show this to Congress is it's embarrassing to the Department of Justice.
Well, the FBI and the Department of Justice has a long and checkered history of classifying things that are embarrassing. Now, I don't know what's going to come out of this. It may ultimately be a great yawn, but the important thing is that the American people need, on both sides, the Trump investigation and this investigation, to see the facts. We don't need it, and that goes beyond just showing it in a classified setting. You know, the public needs to be able to see what the facts are. We'll make up our own decision. But I think what the public is tired of is to have all of these ciphers on both sides, you know, interpreting evidence that we can't see. It's gotten to the point where the public needs to see this material and reach our own conclusions.
Absolutely, so we can figure out how all the big puzzle pieces fit together. Jonathan Turley, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, 7:20 now here in New York City. As the world counts down to the summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, it's also one of the most important weeks of the year for the economy. Charles Payne here to break that down and explain, coming up. Plus, Larry the Cable Guy and his wife Kara join us live, talk about their new book on faith and family.
3.5 weeks, the Met will be hosting its annual ball. And we are going to Robbins.
Wow, time for your news by the numbers, women's style. First, $41.5 million. That's how much Ocean's 8 earned at the box office this weekend. I'm going to go with million. It's the best debut for any of the Ocean's movies. So much for men. Next, $100,000. That's the value of jewelry taken from Annabelle Sanchez's hotel room. According to TMZ, the Atlanta Braves pitcher was playing against the Dodgers during the burglary. What do you want him to do? And finally, $0. That's how much President Trump and Kim Jong-un will have to pay for this piecemeal. KFC offering them a 4-piece box of fried chicken to share at their locations in Singapore. Coleslaw included. Ainsley?
Thanks so much, Brian. Well, you know him as the hilarious comedian, always cracking jokes, and he's on our show a lot, supports the military. But off the stage, Larry the Cable Guy and his wife, Kara, they rely on their faith in Jesus and their horses to guide them through life. And now they are sharing how horses are teaching us about ourselves, life, and God in this new book. It is called Unbridled Faith, 100 Devotions from the Horse Farm. Joining us now, the author of the book, Kara Whitney, along with her husband, Dan Whitney, Larry the Cable Guy. Good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so Kara, what made you decide to write this book of devotions?
Well, I didn't really decide to write a book on devotions.
Oh, really?
I had a lot of questions about God. I used to I call it an excuse now. I used to refer to Christians as hypocrites. But I came to, this is drawn out over decades of me not knowing really anything about a relationship with God or anything like that. But I basically came to the conclusion that how Christians behave has no bearing on whether or not the resurrection happened. And so I wanted to know if that happened, because if it did, then it's true, right? And I came to find out over some time that the resurrection did in fact happen. And I really had to change my life or make a decision to follow Jesus or not. I could stay going down that path. it's about getting in a relationship with God. And as I'm doing that, I started witnessing on social media, and I noticed I was getting a response from that. And so a friend of mine asked if I would compile that into putting it on an app called GoTandem that helps people really sort out what's going on, like if they're struggling with fear or anxiety, any of those things, then this app, GoTandem, would help you out. But through that, someone contacted me and said, could you put those in a book? And so this is that book, Unbridled Faith. So this is very basic evangelism and questions I had about God.
She just started writing these on the internet for people that wanted to know. And he said, how many of those do you have? She goes, about 160 of them. Wow. And he goes, wow, you should put a book out.
For a book, yeah.
Yeah, she's
so
real
Larry,
behind the scenes. So this is like...
You're watching God transform your wife's life, and then in turn, he changed your life.
Oh, it was amazing. Well, here's the thing. You know, I grew up in a Christian home and the whole deal. I got into show business. And, you know, if you don't stay engaged, then you kind of drift away, which is what I was doing. And then I saw my wife. You know, my wife had all these questions. You know, she was searching, and she's like, hey, so, and she'd ask me a question, and I go, well, I don't know. And it was embarrassing because I grew up in it, and she didn't. And so when I started seeing the change in her, it really lit a fire underneath me.
Right.
And so that's why I wrote the foreword. I wrote a foreword in there, so it's fantastic.
It is fantastic.
It's actually a really good foreword.
And horses, how did they help you find God? How do you see God in horses?
Well, they're very peaceful. A lot of the time working with them, there's trust you need to work through, and you know, just all of that. I have anything from, why doesn't God give us everything we want? Well, I was overfeeding my Shetland pony, who I was giving him everything he wanted, and he got really sick. So just because we want it doesn't mean it's good for us. And so I thought, well, that would be a good way to explain that just because we want something doesn't mean God's going to give it to us, because his character is so good. He's just trying to protect us and to, you know,
Right. What he preaches to us is only out of love.
Yeah.
He's trying to help us make the right decisions.
And
for our future.
as I'm working through this, the character of God is being revealed to me, and he is good, and we can trust him, and his promises are true, and so it's a very basic evangelistic type book in hopes that if you're searching, that you'll pick this up. It's a very safe way to gift it to somebody, you know.
I'm curious, how did you meet, and what's it like to have this comedian, the funniest guy, living under your roof?
We met in Las Vegas, actually backstage at the House of Blues, because I used to do radio in Las Vegas. And
I grew up on a pig farm. She grew up on a cattle ranch, and she told me she grew up on a cattle ranch. Right away I was interested, and she ignored me for a while, and I got a hold of her where she worked, and I think I talked to her every day for 2 months, every day. She flew down to see me. We got married a year later.
I made him pursue me, but I ran really slow. That's
a good lesson. That's a good lesson for everyone watching.
The thing about her is I definitely outkick my coverage, so every time I'm out with her, people think she's a hostage, you know, so... I think they've called the cops on me 3 times today. And
y'all have 2 kids?
Yes.
We saw them during the tease, and your son was beating you up.
Oh, yeah, he loves to beat me up. He's 10, going on Redland. So there you go.
All right, thanks so much. Kara, the name of the book is Unbridled Faith, 100 Devotions from the Horse Farm.
I just want to say, we don't make any money off of this. We just want to spread some good news. And if they go to the Larry the Cable Guy Facebook page, that app GoTandem, that's like a spiritual GPS.
Love that.
Yeah. If you download that, there's a way to get the book for free. So go to the Larry the Cable Guy Facebook page. You know, it's about spreading some good news because we desperately need it.
Well, that's the thing. You know, a lot of people, they're empty inside. They're searching for something. They're searching for hope. You know, and that's what my wife did. And so that's another reason she wrote the book.
He'll do that. He did that in my life in 1997, filled that void. Thanks so much, both of you. Congratulations. God bless you. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo setting the tone for the president's meeting with Kim Jong-un.
We're prepared to take actions that will provide them sufficient certainty that they can be comfortable that denuclearization isn't something that ends badly for them. Indeed, just the opposite.
Is that the right move? Our panel is here to discuss it. There they are over there. Plus, it is a name change that is driving the internet crazy. IHOP is becoming IHOB with a B. What does that mean? We've got the exclusive announcement coming up. What's your guess? We're going to tell you what it is on the other side of the break.
All right, we're back with the Fox News Alert. The countdown to the Singapore sit-down is on. We're just hours away from President Trump and Kim Jong-un meeting face-to-face for the first time. And it'll be one-on-one for at least an hour, maybe two. Earlier, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo previewing what he thinks will be a productive meeting.
I am very optimistic that we will have a successful outcome from tomorrow's meeting between these two leaders. It's the case. In each of those two countries, there are only two people that can make decisions of this magnitude, and those two people are going to be sitting in a room together tomorrow.
All right, President Trump and the North Korean dictator will meet alone. That'll start about 9:15 Eastern time, and then the script is out the window. Wait a second, there was never a script. Here to react is our panel. Former Intel officer himself, Drew Berquist, is here. He's the host of Experience Matters on CRTV. Isaac Stonefish is here, and he's a senior fellow at the Asia Society. And Dr. Sue Mai Terry is here, a former CIA analyst covering Korea. Sue, can we start with you? The first thing Mike Pompeo said this morning is, I want to refute the New York Times. It says we have no science experts and no nuclear experts. And he ran through everyone coming with him to this summit. How important is that?
Well, I do think we do have scientists and whatnot, and I do think there's going to be an agreement that Pompeo was talking about. He said he feels very optimistic there's going to be an agreement. I do believe there's going to be an agreement. The problem with North Korea has always been not coming to an agreement, but implementing the agreement. You always fell apart previous agreements over implementation and verification. So this phase is not going to be a difficult phase. I believe we will see some sort of an agreement, but let's see what happens after that. We need to make sure North Korea keeps their word this time.
Are you against them opening up by signing ending the war, officially ending the war? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, and I'm for declaration of peace. I'm for verbally saying let's end the war. I'm for opening up liaison offices. I'm against formally concluding a peace treaty because that undermines later legal justification for U.S. troops to stay in South Korea. So that should come at the end of the process.
Great point. Isaac, so what would convince you that this is different? You know, you just saw Sue come out and say, you know, we've seen this before. What would be different right away?
This is certainly already different because you have the sitting U.S. president meeting with the sitting North Korean leader.
Okay, what about action?
I think in terms of action, I don't believe that North Korea will denuclearize. They don't have a good reason to. This is what keeps them in power. They've seen what happened to Libya. They saw what happened to the Iraqi dictator. And I'm not expecting them to make great changes.
But Drew, why would they say it? Even though I understand the definition might be somewhat different, why would they say it to South Korea? Why would South Korea say it to us? Why would Mike Pompeo have two meetings and still be here today?
Yeah, I think that I disagree with that point. I think that they want to do it because they realize they're in a position of vulnerability, and that's the strength that we bring to this process. Is look, you're backed into a corner. We are one of your way out, if not your only way out. So let's make this happen. I also agree with you. It's going to be a difficult process and road ahead if it does. We do reach an agreement, but we are the path out.
I'm actually in between them because I do think they will give up some elements of the program. My question is, will they get rid of completely verifiably, irreversibly dismantle their nuclear program?
And what is that? I heard experts say 13 sites. Others say 20. Others say 39 sites.
We don't know. North Korea is the world's most opaque nation. We don't know exactly a lot of very crucial details about their nuclear program.
We have done this before. South Africa, they said, come take it. Ukraine, they said, come take it. In Libya, they said, come take it. So we know how to take it. They say in the best scenario, 10 years to get it out.
Right. No, it's going to be, again, it's going to be a process. There are a lot of details that we don't know. But I think the important thing that we need to remember here is with this historic summit is we're here. You know, you don't get anywhere if you don't start. And as simplistic as that sounds, if we don't start this process now, the alternative is a much more violent outcome, which no one wants. So I think you start here, we work our way along, and with the whole time understanding that, hey, we're going to be keeping a close eye on you. We're not going to handle this the way we've handled some of our previous deals in the past. And if you slip up or make mistakes, here are the repercussions. And I think that's what Pompeo said in those initial meetings.
And lastly, the one thing we could get, we got the 3 hostages back. You know, the one thing we could get as we leave, Japan gets the 13 abductees back. Yeah. And they could easily supply that. Never should have taken to begin with, correct?
Well, I don't know if they can actually send them back because we don't know if they are alive or not. But it's important that President Trump actually raises this issue and North Korea deals with the abduction issue for our friends.
And Isaac, real quick, human rights. When would you bring it up?
From the beginning.
Right at the beginning?
I think that's very important. I think Trump needs to, he's taken a lot of flack deservedly for trashing his allies in G7. And here we have North Korea, a country the U.S. has had a very hostile relationship with, deservedly. And I think he needs to stand up for human rights in North Korea.
All right, guys, great panel. We need another hour. And you know what? I'm going to talk to Henry. Maybe I'll get it because he does have an extra one now. Jillian, you're upstairs, and you told me you were going to do the news, but sometimes you do your own thing.
Yes, I do. I like to keep you on your toes, Brian. Somebody has to.
Okay, fine.
But right now I am going to do the news because we are following some news out of Chicago, and it was a weekend of bloodshed there. 4 people were killed and at least 17 others hurt in a cluster of shootings on Sunday alone. Another 3 people were shot and killed on Saturday. So far this year, at least 1,070 people have been shot in Chicago. A high-ranking Air Force officer who disappeared 35 years ago is found living in California. William Howard Hughes Jr. just arrested on desertion charges for leaving the Air Force and creating a fake identity. Hughes, a Kirtland Air Force Base officer, was involved in classified planning and analysis of NATO surveillance systems during the Cold War. Investigators say he left because he was depressed. Actor Robert De Niro uses the Tony Awards to bash the president, the outspoken critic cursing President Trump twice, and just watch how the audience reacts.
I'm going to say one thing, Trump. It's no longer down with Trump, it's Trump.
Well, as you can see and hear, De Niro getting a huge applause for his attack on the president. We want to know what you think of that. Email us at friends@foxnews.com, or you can go to our Facebook or Twitter pages. And after years of delays, 3 World Trade Center will open today. It is the 3rd building to go up where the Twin Towers once stood, and it's the 5th largest building in New York City. Construction was stalled for years due to problems between government agencies, the developer, and 9/11 victims' families who wanted the site preserved. The 80-story office building will house several different companies. Let's look at your headlines. I'll send it to you, Brian.
All right, Jillian, since you read the news like you said you would, I'm going to read the teas like I promised. Straight ahead, as the world counts down to the summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, it's also one of the most important weeks of the year for the economy. Charles Payne will begin walking this direction. Plus, it's the name change driving the internet wild. IHOP, the International House of Pancakes, is now IHOB. But what does the B mean? We got an exclusive announcement coming up and a bunch of syrups to examine. All right, we're back with the Fox News Alert. A police officer is shot responding to a domestic call overnight.
My goodness. Now the suspected gunman is barricaded inside an Orlando apartment complex, holding 4 kids hostage.
This is terrible. Amanda McKenzie from our Fox affiliate in Orlando is live outside the hospital where the officer is recovering. Amanda.
Good morning. And yes, the Orlando Police Chief John Mina tells us that officer has already been in and out of a very serious surgery treating that gunshot wound. They say he was responding to a domestic violence incident where a man has barricaded himself inside of an apartment with 4 young children. Now, that officer was taken to this emergency room where he is expected to survive. We don't know the exact condition or extent of his injuries at this time, but with only 2 years on the force, there has been an outpouring of love and support for him as cop cars have lined these streets, showing their love for one of their own. Reporting live in Orlando, I'm Amanda McKenzie.
All right, Amanda, thank you very much. We're going to keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, the historic summit taking place on what may be the economy's most crucial week of the entire year. As new reports say, the president will try to convince North Korea to get richer by doing business with America, maybe even open a McDonald's.
Charles Payne is the host of Making Money on the Fox Business Network, and he joins us now to weigh in on this. Do you think that's going to happen? Will American companies, iconic American companies, go to North Korea?
Oh, well, remember a couple years ago when President Obama was
was opening up Cuba. Don't you remember all the headlines?
Oh, sure.
The billions of dollars that were going to be made? I mean, the dynamics are so much more significant for an open market North Korea. We've seen the economic development. I'll give you an example. In 1950, North Korea and South Korea both on average had GDP capita of about $850. Now it's about $26,000 per person in South Korea to about $2,000 for a person in North Korea, and that's on the high end. So they look down at their brothers and sisters in the South and say, golly, that could have been us. Already,
they don't actually know about it for the most part, right?
Well, they know a lot more than we think they know. There are 3 million mobile phones in North Korea. There's a market economy that's starting to boom in North Korea. This is Kim Jong-un's central planning. Is not his grandfather's central planning.
At the top, we mentioned that this could be the most consequential week of the year economically. What's happening?
Well, we've got the Federal Reserve meeting this week also. They're going to raise rates, but more importantly, they'll kind of give us a hint on just how much they want to tap the brakes on this economy. There's no doubt the economy is moving. That's why the Fed is taking action. It's okay as long as they don't overreact. I mean, there are a whole lot of folks watching this show who are just now starting to get a little bit of, pep in their step, if you will, get a little of the swagger back. Fed, don't take that away from anyone just yet. So, and of course, we've had an amazing market run that's been sort of stealthy because of all the other headlines. The market's been on fire like the economy.
What about the reaction to the fallout after the G7 summit? How's that going to affect the economic?
It shouldn't affect anything at all. I mean, most of that was bluster. In fact,
July, more tariffs are coming our way. There's a reaction to our reaction.
Canada has 19,500 tariffs right now. Right now. Yeah, there are more tariffs coming, but it's going to just underscore President Trump's opinion. Right. The EU said they're going to level more tariffs on cranberries, orange juice, and whiskey. Well, guess what the current tariffs are? 22%, 23%, and 11%. The only reason they're doing that is because those things are made in Trump country. They're making this to a political thing, trying to make him bend to the will. If anyone wants to be honest and put all the tariffs out there on the table, the American public will be shocked at what American producers and farmers must contend with to sell their products to our quote-unquote friends.
We'll find out.
People will still buy their whiskey, though. All right. They don't care about the price.
Especially that Tennessee stuff, right? And Kentucky bourbon, yeah.
Thanks, Charles.
All right, guys, see you.
Meanwhile, it's the name change we've been telling you about, driving the internet crazy. IHOP is becoming iHob. What does the B mean? You will find out exclusively next.
Is Waffle House going to stay Waffle House?
Talking about this all day long. It is the name change that is driving the internet crazy. IHOP is going to become iHob. So what does the B stand for?
Well, here with more on the exclusive announcement is IHOP's president, Darren Rebelez. He joins us live from the new iHob restaurant in Los Angeles. Okay, Mr. President, what could you tell us?
Well, thanks. First of all, good morning, and thanks for having me on the show. And I'd love to welcome all of America to the world's first iHob restaurant, which stands for the International House of Burgers.
Burgers!
Really?
We're making breakfast, brunch.
Wow, burgers.
Wait a minute.
Really?
So why are you doing this? Oh, the burgers are here.
These are the burgers right here?
Burgers.
That was fast.
Yeah, Darren, why are you doing this? Are we still going to have pancakes on the menu?
Okay, yeah, well, let me put to rest that concern. We're always going to have pancakes on the menu.
Okay.
We're always going to be IHOP, but America loves burgers and America loves IHOP, and we thought this was a fantastic combination to bring America's burgers to an iconic brand like IHOP. And you can see we have the whole lineup right here for you.
All right. So I understand, Darren, that you're going to be serving burgers. Ooh, look at the one with the onion rings right there.
Right there in front of you.
You've got the burgers from sun up to sundown. Are you also going to be serving breakfast all day, too?
Absolutely. Our breakfast hasn't changed. You know, we're world famous for our buttermilk pancakes and our breakfast food, so we're going to always have breakfast. And in fact, you can get pancakes with your burger at the same time, so you don't even have to choose. You can get it all.
That's amazing. You should have a pancake burger, a couple of little pancakes, sandwich with a little bit of meat in between. Or have you already thought about that?
Well, I'll tell you what, we do have our brunch burger, which has a fried egg on it, our hickory smoked bacon, and a crispy potato cake on it, so it is absolutely delicious.
So Darren, here's the question. Now I know what the B means. Now we know pancakes matter, burgers matter. What makes you international?
Well, we have restaurants in a lot of countries around the world. We have almost 1,700 restaurants in the U.S. and about another 100 or so internationally. But we're growing like crazy right now.
Wow.
And we're going to be around the world very
All
shortly.
right, so if these talks go well today with the president of our president and the North Korean president, will you open an IHOB in North Korea? Would that ever be an idea?
Well, we're not going to exclude any part of the world as long as it's okay security-wise.
Yeah.
So.
Is my gift card still going to work that says IHOP on it? Good question.
Of course it is.
Excellent. And don't ever get rid of the
all
harvest.
of your IHOP stuff is going to work.
Your harvest grain pancakes took me through my pregnancy. Please don't ever get rid of those. They are delicious.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Ainsley. And of course, we're not getting rid of any of those.
Right. And Darren, if this doesn't work, it's pretty much your career. Just telling you.
Why is that funny? We're so mean.
Listen, he's officially changing the name of the franchise today.
All right.
All right, Darren Rebelez,
Well, this has been a little bit of a high-risk maneuver, but...
Well,
we back you 100%.
You know what? The burger is amazing.
All right, we're gonna eat that. So let's
awesome.
Join us from the First International House of Burgers out in L.A., Darren Rebelez. We thank you very much.
This one has a hash brown in it.
Oh,
yeah, and an egg on top.
This one is all bacon.
All right, still ahead. John's going to be eating, and we're going to be talking about those people that were jailed in North Korea. What is it like? Well, we're going to talk to one of them.